Hello, my dog lovers. Hi, good afternoon. It's Thursday, and I have Alicia here and also Christina behind the scenes. Last week, we took a little break because I needed to compose myself, but this week we are in full force because I'll be giving you some tips on how to keep your dog safe in the summer. Now, Alicia, who is with us here. Hi, Alicia.
Hi, everyone.
Has been, she always has good ideas, but I confess, even though she may have a good idea, I sometimes don't like to do what other people tell me. And Alicia came up with the idea that I should put together a summer safety list. And I don't like put together lists. So what I did, I kind of had a little moment to sat down, and then I actually did come up with a list that I hope you'll find useful. And Alicia will have also some slides. And at the end, we'll have some questions. So I hope you will have many. And if your dog is nearby, make sure that you give him or her a hug for me. So anyway, keeping dogs safe in the summer is super important. And the first thing that you may want to do is to assess the temperature outside. If you see that it's a nice hot summer day, you take an egg, you either put it on a pavement or sand, and if the pavement is hot enough, the egg will cook. Then it means that your dog is just ready to go, meaning that the hotter the better. Now, another thing that you can do if it's a nice hot day, you will tie your dog on a leash under a shady tree, unlock your car, take an iPad or maybe a book and sit down in the car. Make sure that the windows are all shut down. And when the temperature hits boiling point, water boiling point, that's the right temperature. And also in the meantime, while you're sitting in that hot car, you could actually complain about Tesla car because they just invented this really silly software that actually keeps dogs cool when you need to, and it doesn't fail. And I think that everyone has the right to complain about Tesla actually thinking of dogs because that's that's ridiculous. We know that summer is also tick season, and the best way to control ticks is to make sure that you never ever use all natural effective flea control and tick control, because if you do not use products that are toxic and have fatalities under their belt, it's actually responsible. I think that everyone should support drug companies and flea and tick product companies that make toxic products, because we need to help them to generate good income and make sure that they do well. Obviously, when it comes to fleas, what you need to do is to get a really nice shag carpet that is really thick. Then make sure that the moisture is just about right, temperatures are high, and also I would like you to put to donate your vacuum cleaner to charity, because they do need vacuum cleaners here and there, and you don't really need a vacuum cleaner for preventing fleas. That's unnecessary. Now, the next step you can take is to take your dog out for running. When I bike with packs, I usually make sure that I bike really fast and I leave him in the dust. And he's trying to, keep up, but it's good exercise for him. And he also really enjoys overheating, meaning who doesn't enjoy overheating? And dogs really love heat strokes. And I think it's a perfect way to exercise them in the summer. The other benefit is that your dog will get injured, and then he would not need to go for walks and will need to be locked up in the house. And dogs love that too. Just do nothing about injuries, because when your dog starts limping, why would you see a vet or a chiropractor or physiotherapist to make it better? Like, it's waste of money. And I think that you can buy Starbucks coffee or maybe Coke or pizza. Why would you spend money on dog care? That's absolutely ridiculous. Now, if your dog gets exhausted, sometimes there's an additional benefit, because the lumbar spine gets injured and sometimes twisted when they run. And then you can spend sleepless nights cleaning carpets and puddles, because dogs often get incontinent after they injure their lumbar spine. So this is an additional benefit for biking with dogs because, you know, who wouldn't love the smell of pee? I never ever carry water bottles on hikes with me because it's good to challenge our dog's kidneys. And if you really can't resist and you want to take water bottle to forest or for a walk, make sure that they're plastic because plastic is beautiful. It leaches the plastic and toxins in the water. And also, you know, who doesn't love a little bit of extra color on the beach, right? That's you know, that's always good. I don't like the dullness of sandy beaches because, you know, there's a little bit of plastic, a little bit of color. It's much better. Now, what else can I tell you? I know that some of you love paddleboarding with your dogs. I usually make sure that I never ever used any flotation devices for my dogs. You know, people may think that it's funny or the color may not be exactly right. And you just really want your dog to be fashionable. And those floating vests and swim jackets, they're just really unsightly. The other thing that you may want to do is to take 2 ropes or strings or leashes and tie them to your dog's collar and tie them to the board. So if the board gets deflated, if you're using an inflatable board, your dog can pull the board to the shore. And, you know, it's a little bit of exercise for him as well. If your dog loves to swim, and Pax loves to swim, he's actually right here, he just finished his boom. It's super important to let them swim obsessively for hours because that way they can injure their shoulders and then you can support your vet with injuries. The other thing is that some dogs, especially golden retrievers and labs, get a condition that is called rudder tail. And rudder tail is a really beautifully painful injury that actually can be chronic. And I've seen that in a lot of dogs. They really had a good time with that. And their owners loved seeing their dogs in pain. It's really an important thing to do. Make sure that your dog is an obsessive swimmer. Now, you know, a little bit of refreshment is great. And I would highly recommend feeding your dogs grapes or raisins because, you know, kidney failure is just a small side effects and dogs really like frozen fruit and stuff. And it's super important. And Alicia, I'm going to ask you to actually maybe just have the slide going because I know that you need to be flipping back and forth. And I'm sure that it's hard for you. So anyway, make sure that you feed your dog grapes because kidney failure is a beautiful side effect, and who wants dogs to live a long time, right? Like it's just not necessary. You can just go to a puppy mill or pet store and get another one. Any repetitive activity like ball and frisbee throwing is also really beneficial because who wants a mobile dog when your dog gets older? It's much better to see stiff dogs with a little bit of joint disease. Like, you know, they don't bug you as much to go for walks. And I think that it's real strong point here. The other thing is that, you know, if you waste your energy going for a walk with your dog, it's really waste of energy. It's better to stand in the park and have low greenhouse gas emission when you're standing. Of course, unless you ate some beans for dinner the night before. But otherwise, I would say the best way is to stand in the park, maybe drink some Coke or smoke a cigarette and throw the frisbee or a ball for your dog. You know, I generally never engage with packs. I usually chain him down. I sometimes put him in the crate. He really loves denning. He doesn't really like any company. He likes to be in solitude. And I usually just go and do my thing and just leave him locked up because that's the best way to go. I've seen some silly people walking dogs on a walk and on a trails and in the forest and parks. And I think it's kind of ridiculous. Like who would want to waste the time? Now, I also love the use of shock, prong, or e-collars. Some really irresponsible dog lovers use harnesses, which are, you know, they're just way too much. And they're ridiculous colors. Like I like really hard metal. And there's a thyroid gland right under the collar. You can beautifully injure it and make your dog hypothyroid. which will mean that that your dog, you will not need to feed your dog as much, because if you have a hypothyroid dog, they will become overweight really beautifully, and you won't need to really feed them as much. So it'll save you some money on food. Now, I know that sometimes life is really boring, and I personally think that it's good to make your dog jump and twist and sprint, especially after you feed it a big meal, because then you will have guaranteed excitement of going to the emergency clinic and to treat a bloat. Some dogs are really, good in twisting their stomachs, and why not? But listen, now seriously, never do that. I don't ever want you to run and exercise your dog after feeding. I couldn't even joke about it because it's just too serious. So don't feed your dog at least for 3 to 4 hours after a meal. Now, if you're bored and you live in Canada or a region where there are bears, I have one really good exercise for you. Take your dog to a forest, and when you see a bear, make sure that he chases the bear. And when the bear comes to you, praise your dog specially, and also have a garbage bag with trash for the bear, because then when you come next time, it's actually super likely that your bear will also come again. Now, if you have golf courses around, or if you love to use Roundup or some pesticides and chemicals on your lawn, this is a really good way to prevent ticks and fleas, because your dog will be so toxic that your fleas and ticks will not jump on. I really don't ever, never leave my dog off leash, because they don't really need freedom. They should obey the laws and bylaws. And, some cities are responsible, and they really love to put signs up. And I think that we should obey all the signs, and also make sure that our dogs never go off leash, especially in the off leash areas, because some people are so good, they scream and yell at you to put your dog on the leash, and you should always obey, because their needs are above everything, and especially above your dog. So I guess that's about it. I trust that he did know that I wasn't super serious, but I also know, and Alicia, you can stop sharing if you want to. I also know that you may have some questions about what to do about summer safety and fun. And when I was creating this list, and Pax's friend Kuba is here, so he's barking. He wants to say hi. I really enjoyed having fun with this list, because I know that Alicia actually didn't expect me to have such a different twist on it. And I just don't like ordinary things. So I hope that you've enjoyed it. And if you want to share this list with others, obviously feel free, and I'll be very grateful. And if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm here to answer them.
Thanks so much. We don't have any questions just yet. We've got some feedback from the community though. Some said that if it doesn't work out as a veterinarian, you could always go into being a stand-up comedian. So I thought I'd share that.
Hardly. It's actually not really my, kind of element, but I do my best, and I have good coaches here.
It's definitely, yeah, it's good to have a different take on it, because maybe people will pay attention when we frame it a little bit differently. One thing that you did mention briefly, if you could maybe expand on, is swimming. Summer is such a good opportunity for our dogs to swim in the lakes and cool off. How much swimming is too much? I understand that some sporting breeds are more prone to others at getting like swimmer's tail and things.
Yeah, I don't think that there is a rule of thumb that I could say, if your dog swims 15 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, it's too much or too little. But I do think that I would say anything over an hour is probably too much, especially if it's in one kind of swim. Swimming is much more body demanding than running or walking. Try to swim for 10 kilometers or 10 miles, right? That's going to be a lot. So I would say try to divide the time you walk by 4, and then that's probably the amount of swimming that your dog may want to do. But this is just an idea that I would probably go with. I just went to a little pond that we have in our neighborhood for 30 minutes, and Pax swam, and he likes to fish. Actually, there's a little fish in the pond, and he loves to jump and try to catch them. That kind of makes me also feel that seeing dogs being in the water and being interested in fish is kind of a proof that they have evolved to actually catch and eat fish if they had the opportunity, whether it's salmon or trout or some other fish. So I think that fish is good for dogs, especially when it's freshwater wild fish. When it comes to saltwater fish, it's actually not as safe anymore because there's mercury and pesticides and other steroid-like substances that originate from plastic that actually can affect the body's hormonal systems as well.
Mm-hmm. And Belinda has asked a question. Thank you, Belinda. She has a question about swimmer's tail. What is it? Some people haven't necessarily heard of it. Is there a way that you could describe it for our audience to get a better understanding of what that entails?
You know, I've seen it only once or twice actually in a lifetime. So it's not very common, but I've seen it in golden retrievers, and it's a sacral lumbar kind of like neuromuscular deficiency or deficit / inflammatory process that leads sometimes to dogs not being able to wag their tail because, you know, when they swim, they actually move the tail so much, and they probably involve quite a bit of musculature and also nerve effort. And when this happens for hours on end, they actually stop being able to move the tail. They may have sacral lumbar, especially sacral misalignments, and inflammatory process, especially in the muscles. So that's that's as far as I know. I would say that I'm not an expert on rudder tail, but I've seen it, and I know that the best remedy is to use some homeopathic remedies for muscle sprain and strain, such as arnica, maybe turmeric, which is anti-inflammatory component, omega oils, and especially not to let your dog swim like crazy for hours, even though he or she may like it. You know, if I would let Pax do what he wants to do, he would actually chase butterflies for hours, and I know that I have to cut it off. Some dogs just don't know when to stop and when to rest. They can actually get exhausted to the point of dropping. I've seen one border collie that almost died of exhaustion and was treated for inflammation, and was, you know, tests were done and all these different things. And then the client came to me and I asked him what the dog was doing. He says, well, you know, she usually spends the whole day with the kids outside in front of the condo complex, and she retrieves the ball all day long because there's always someone who throws the ball for her. So that was pretty clear. We actually gave her some homeopathic treatment for exhaustion, which is phosphoric acid, and I've given a high potency, 1M. And within a few days, we had a different dog. It was really cool, actually, especially resting as well. It was really nice. It was a good case. And we're still friends with John, the client. And now he's on to second dog and he knows better.
That's awesome. Monica has a question also related to swimming. She asks if it's recommended to bathe your dog every time it goes for a swim.
I have a rule of thumb that if your dog swims in the ocean, that I actually rinse him. I rinse Pax off every time he goes for a swim in salty water. If it's fresh water, I think that the most important part is to consider the pollution level of the water. If it's really clear and clean, then you don't have to. Otherwise, rinsing and maybe bathing once every 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how, you know, dirty your dog's coat gets, and sometimes it can be a little greasy or a little off by swimming too much in dirty water. So, you know, it's good to wash it off once in a while, especially if it's not that clean.
Absolutely. And you've mentioned in past conversations how you approach people about diet or about maybe switching out a collar for a harness. If you see someone that is maybe walking their dog on really hot concrete, or is out in the forest with a bike, they're biking and their dog is just struggling to keep up, how would you approach the situation? Like, this is something I struggle with because I live in Whistler. I see it on a regular basis, and it drives me crazy that people think they're maybe, you know, taking their dog for a great adventure, but they're not being mindful of the fact that they're wearing shoes and the dog is not. read the temperature, in the cement, or that the dog is, on this great adventure riding the bike through the forest, but it is just struggling to keep up. So, how do we go about having that conversation with people?
Well, I would have a conversation first. I would really praise them for being irresponsible, because it's the best way to be. I would also recommend getting an e-bike so they're faster, and just kind of complain that the dog is too close to them, because that's something that, we really need to leave a big distance between us and the dog and make sure that they really get good exercise. But on a serious note, Alicia, I usually, like, if I get a chance, I usually strike a conversation on the level like, wow, what an amazing dog. He's strong, right? And then I would say, it looks like you love him. You take him out. So I actually preset the soil in a way to kind of give them a compliment, right? And they soften up. I can't really come up with the criticism. And they say, hey, I can see that you really care about your dog. And I've heard, my friend's dog, you can even make it up, because this is a white lie and it would help, right? My friend's dog, I just heard of a dog that got totally badly injured. And I've read this article that says that that it's really, the dogs cannot really keep up with us. And I just thought I would mention that, because you really love your dog. And then depending on how they respond, they say, well, I didn't know that, right? So often people say that they don't know that. We don't know what we don't know. Sometimes people think that they exercise their dogs really well, and they're responsible. If they're a little negative, say, I'm sorry for invading your privacy. I just thought that you need to know, or you should know, because I can see how much connected you are with your dog. And I know that it can affect his health. And just leave, and if people get upset, just say, I'm sorry. It's, I didn't mean badly. And I hope you didn't get offended.
That's great. Just open the conversation, start with something nice. And as you said, even if they're offended initially, it might at least plant the seed that they will think differently the next time they take their dog out for a walk. So yeah, that really helps. And one question, Belinda asked, what are your thoughts on amber collars? I'm not actually sure what an amber collar is.
Amber is probably from amber, right? Like it's probably from amber. Made of amber.
Belinda,
Isn't that like a,
oh, sorry, I was going to say, Belinda, if you're still tuned in, if you can maybe expand on that. Maybe it's to do with
energy, maybe, or amber is the special sap, right, from trees, like that is solidified. I'm an ESL person. Forgive me, you guys. I just wanted to make sure that I'm correct. I don't know. I have no idea, actually. If you have anything to share, Linda, share it in the comments.
We'll circle back to that. We can definitely follow up after the broadcast, but thank you so much for the questions that are coming in so far. And when it comes to exercising puppies versus adult dogs versus senior dogs, especially maybe in the summer and the heat, do you have any suggestions on what sort of steps people should take to be mindful of how much exercise to give dogs at various ages?
Yeah, I started with the puppies. Puppies, they vary. I thought that I would not exercise Pax fully until he was 1 year. And then I realized that by the age of 6-7 months, he was actually quite happy to run faster than I thought he should, but he was happy. So I would give them free rein on that level. I would not be taking them on really strenuous hikes or uphill, downhill. A lot of repetitive exercise like ball throwing, it can really cause injuries, even diarrhea. There's actually a really good article on diarrhea and exercise and how it can connect together on our website, so you can check. So with puppies, I would just go very gradually. I would just kind of take it easy until they're 1 year, unless they decide that they don't want to take it easy. And then, that's what they would do in the forest or when they played with other puppies. But I would not take them on long hikes. It's really hard for me to give you exact numbers, but be mindful and just kind of see whether your dog is resting and how he feels or she feels the next day. Those are the measures. Like after your dog is fully grown or 1 year plus, I would say that he most likely, unless you have a really giant breed, can hike and do all jogging and running, and they usually do much more than we are able to do. So that would be safe. Definitely don't bring them on bike rides, and I have seen people actually taking their dogs on a dusty road and putting them behind a car, like taking them out and driving, and the dogs run behind them. So that's the best idea actually to do, because who wants a healthy dog, right? You just have to take them out on a dirty road, make them inhale dust, and make them run really fast, at least 30-40 miles an hour, because they can't really keep up with that. And then you have a ruined dog by the age of 2 or 3. Anyway, don't get me going. Now, adult dogs, again, depends on how much we mess them up, breeding and so on. Some dogs can't really go long distances because their legs are short or crooked, or they can't breathe, like short nose breeds. So you have to be really careful about how much your dog does. If you have a sporting breed or a border collie or a hunting breed, like they do 5 to 10 times the miles that you do if you take them on a hike. And the most important part is to take them to a chiropractor or physiotherapist, check them regularly. Pax the other day tried to jump from one rock to another and just kind of fell, and I could see him actually starting to scratch on the neck. And scratching sometimes may seem like a skin condition, but it actually may be an injury of the muscle. He also ran into a mosquito screen about 6 months ago. And for about 1 week, he was actually scratching around his ears. And most people would, and also my colleagues would assume that this is actually an ear problem, right? And he actually jammed his C1 cervical vertebra, and we had to work with that and align it back to stop the scratching. So there are some things that are really cool, and when you kind of gain that awareness, you see your dog in a totally different light.
And when it comes to, for example, Sky during the very senior years, how did you balance that sort of exercise, especially in the hot summer months?
Dogs lose the capacity. Thank you so much, actually, about the senior dogs, because I must not forget about them. Senior dogs lose the respiratory capacity. Their lungs get a little more fibrous, and they don't have as much of a heat exchange. So they get overheated much more easily. I try to keep them cool. I walk them, especially older dogs, in the early morning and late evening in the summer. There may be days in the hot areas where you just need to take it easy with them. Some people use cooling vests. You may have, a bottle full of ice cubes to kind of give your dog a drink from that. How did I manage Sky's exercise? Mobility in older dogs is like my major passion. And some people ask me, why did I formulate so many supplements and still don't have a mobility supplement? I like to release only when I know that a product is really good and ready. And I am not forgetting about senior dogs. I will be hopefully releasing something in the next year or two, but it's really, there's a mobility course on our website. You can actually watch it and you can see what I do about mobility. But when it comes to dosing of exercise, you really have to be mindful about your dog and how tired and stiff they get. There's also a really good way of keeping your dog mobile by working with a physiotherapist. They sometimes create little obstacle course for older dogs, or you can teach them how to lift legs, or there are balancing cushions that you can get for your dog, and that also keeps them more agile and strong, core strength, and also proprioception and nervous system coordination. There's so many things that we can do. Massage, definitely chiropractic, sometimes acupuncture. All that is a way to keep dogs healthy. But I have been kind of eyeing or focused on also gene and DNA repair and mitochondrial energy. And that's something that is up and coming. And I will be definitely talking about it more as I learn more and have more to share.
Excellent. And one of our team members, thank you, Hannah, did pull up some information. The amber collar that someone referred to is some sort of a flea and tick repellent product. I think it's fair to say we haven't had experience with it, so we can't necessarily comment on it. But that is what it's for from what we can see on the internet.
And guys, I think that with some exceptions, if you go and read reviews, I think that most of the time they're pretty reliable. To say that, I'm really happy that we have such high reviews for our products. But you know, I sometimes feel like I should share it, and then I feel like I'm a little. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not a good marketer. Anyway, check them out if you want. But when it comes to any products of other manufacturers, I think that it's super important not to criticize the efforts of others unless there is a proof. Like with flea and tick products, we know that they're actually killing and damaging animals. So I don't really necessarily mind to say that. But and there are also articles on our website that will actually give you an idea which brand is more damaging than the other. But I have a rule of not really naming brands and I don't like to poo-poo someone else's work unless they really are clearly and evidently endangering our dog safety. I can say responsibly that I don't like kibble, and I can say responsibly that kibble is not good for dogs. I don't know one single medical human doctor who would recommend processed food over fresh food. So I can be clear on that. There's so many things that we could talk about. There's also a lot of recordings. There are a lot of recordings of these Facebook Live. So if you want to learn some other information on ear care and what else did we do, Alicia? I can't remember. So many different things. Anal
glands, dental care, bone feeding. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one of the last questions, since let's see, this time is just ticking by quickly. Andrea mentioned that she did have a dog that used to overexert themselves. They've settled down now more with age. But are there any warning signs to look out for, especially, again, looking at summer weather conditions? What's too much when it comes to dogs panting? Like, how does an owner or guardian recognize when a dog might be in danger and need to see a vet to get treatment versus can just rest and hydrate?
Overheating in dogs, like if your dog is basically collapses, that's obviously a sign that there's something seriously wrong, and you need to rush to an emergency. Also try to cool it down as much as you can, as fast as you can. I dare to say that most dog lovers actually know. And when you actually start asking that question, is my dog overheating or too hot? It's probably true. You should not see your dog panting for hours. And ideally, you should not really exercise your dog in direct sun in the middle of the day. No matter what climate you live in, it's probably not a good idea. Get up early. It's really nice. There are no people around.
Absolutely. And you save yourself from getting any UV damage that humans get in the middle of the day. So it's a win-win.
And Alicia, as an Australian, she can tell you, and she's super good in caring for her skin. My parents weren't that careful, so I sun damaged like by the age of 6. But
we try.
Admire your skin.
Jana actually has a follow-up to what we were just talking about. Thank you, Jana. She says that she has an 11-month-old dog that seems to pant all the time, whether outside or in the air conditioning house. The air-conditioned house. It doesn't seem like she's hot all the time. Why could she be panting all the time? She's a high energy dog, but is there something else that could be causing the panting if she's doing it in the comfort of an air conditioned house?
How old?
11 months.
11 months, panting all the time. There's so many different things that kind of actually lead to it. I would have to know where Jana lives as well, and what the temperatures are now. Some of the things that you can do is to feed cooling diets, a lot of greens in that case, and some poultry is actually heating. So you want to do more of the neutral and cooling meats. We have a recipe maker that you can go to and see which meats are cooling and which ones are heating. But I can tell you that poultry is probably not good, and greens are excellent for dogs that overheat. If you're feeding kibble, it does lead to overheating as well and generating more heat because there is more carbs, and also the metabolism gets a little agitated and high. What else? I would need to know a little more. I don't really like trimming. Actually, that's something that I wanted to say. I don't like trimming dogs' coats in the summer because it does seem to insulate based on research. However, there is some thermal photography taken that we posted in the past. And there was before shaving and after shaving picture, and the after shaving picture was hotter. But it was measuring and taking the surface of the fur versus surface of the skin, closely shaved skin. So I think that it's not really fair to say that long or short hair is better or worse. But I do have a feeling that dogs that have shorter hair, most of them actually do get more exposed to heat more directly. And it's, I really do not know 100%, but I would not shave Pax just to get him cooler. Basically, that's my take on it.
Mm-hmm. And we have one more question about the summer, enjoying it outside with our doggies. What about sunscreen for their nose? What does that look like in your world? I know that you used it at one point for Sky. Not sure if you use it now with Pax. What can people do? Brown nose, pink nose, does it matter?
Skin cancer is not as common as in people, in dogs, because they live shorter life. So that probably the UV damage is not as significant in that lifespan. When it comes to cats, I've seen skin cancer in white cats, especially. They're really prone to it, albino cats. I used a sunscreen for Sky. I used a brand called Michelle, but then I'm not really sure, but I think that it may use how do you call that zinc that is really micronized? It's nano. It may be nano. I don't really know what it is. You may want to check that site and ask them, because I don't really know whether it is nano or not. It's a good sunscreen otherwise, but I'm not using sunscreen with Pax because I'm not really sure whether it's as good for them to ingest the zinc, right? Titanium screens may be a little better, but screens always have additives and dogs lick it. So make sure that it's really natural. And ideally, just don't expose your dog to direct sun during the midday, like from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock p.m. It's just not a good idea. And unless you have to walk your dog in the middle of the day, just don't. And if you do, then just take him or her in the forest, in the park, in treat area. Paxie's here. Hi, Paxie. Do you want to come and say hi? Come on. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. He's not really. I'm standing him up a little bit, so I won't keep him for very long. But maybe he just want to say hi. He doesn't seem to mind. Hi. He's all wet and a little dirty. We have to bathe him because we've been hiking in the mud. It was really rainy. It's been really rainy. Hi.
Speaking of drying dogs after they've been swimming, what about for dogs with long coats, whether it's a golden or a dog like Pax, if they've been in the water, how do we dry them off properly so that they don't have maybe hot spots as a result of water staying on the skin and all of that sort of thing? I know hot spots are not always related, but what can you tell us about the importance of drying a dog off properly?
Okay, bye. You can go. Hotspots. So many people think that hotspots are a result of too much swimming, but the moisture is only a small portion of the problem. A healthy skin and coat should actually not generate hotspots. It should be resilient and resistant enough. When you see that your dog has hotspots, it usually actually starts with some sort of unusual pattern of scratching that is usually caused by abnormal tension or sore muscles. Dogs start scratching and chewing when they have sore muscles. And most people actually think that hotspots happen in the summer because it's hot and dogs swim. Well, dogs also exercise much more. So usually spring, March, April, there are certain months where hotspots starts coming and people say, well, my dog has seasonal allergies. Well, he has seasonal injuries. And so dogs start chewing, they traumatize the skin. And when there is more moisture and maybe dogs on kibble and their skin and coat is not as resilient, then hotspots are more likely to happen. So if you have a hotspot dog, make sure that you check for injuries. and make sure that your dog doesn't overdo it, because that's something that people miss often. And I've seen people spending thousands of dollars for allergy testing, and they put dogs on antibiotics and steroids repeatedly, and major procedures and anesthesia for treatment, some of the painful infections, while they can be prevented by being mindful about muscle injuries. It's actually one of the, I'm really proud of this kind of really simple technique of preventing hotspots, because it works in most dogs, and it's still unknown. Sometimes in veterinary medicine, there's one pattern that I've noticed, that people just repeat what we've been taught at school, and nobody questions whether it works or not. And we just do the same thing until we have a antibiotic and steroid damaged dog that has side effects for, liver disease or some sort of other side effects, and is ruined. And it really breaks my heart. And that's one of the things that I really love doing, is to share this information with people. My dream, when I was in practice, I really did not like charging people, and I had to sustain the practice, but I really didn't like it. So my dream was to create a system where I would be able to give the information for free. And now we have a company where we actually give advice pretty much to anyone who sends us an email. And we don't even look whether they're buying our products or not. The products obviously support the mission. They help us to bring the income that is needed to pay all the team members and everything that we do, because free stuff is not very free. It's expensive. But it really makes me feel happy that we've been able to create the system. And I think that health should be public domain. I really don't agree with the idea that healthcare should be a business, like major business. I think that we all should be entitled to good health, at least having the information how to keep it. And I do have a feeling that the system is really broken, when we know how much drug companies are charging, and they sometimes jack the prices up just because they can. And I've run into an article or maybe a TED talk by a lady who actually is the daughter of a person who was somehow involved in development of, her father is involved in development of drugs. And she actually came out with the idea, or with the information, that drug companies just slightly tweak the patent of a drug so they can extend the kind of grace period for them to be the exclusive manufacturers, right? So they're actually trying in the US and other countries, they're trying to prevent this from happening, because sometimes a drug is really patented, not for X amount of years, but double or triple the amount of time. And that leads to really high costs of medication, even the one that is needed. And, I don't think that drug companies are evil. I think that the system is kind of allowing them to be like this. We also need to kind of look at who, if we have a retirement portfolio or something like that, who we actually give the money to. Like I had a small portfolio with an investment advisor, and he was really mad with me when I said, I don't want to invest in any drug companies. I don't want to invest in any car companies. I don't want to invest in oil and coal and so on. And then I'm derailing a little bit, but forgive me. I said, why do you get upset when I want to invest into companies that I like Tesla or something, someone that is, sustainable, or at least tries to make a difference? Are you getting directives from the bank? And he said, absolutely not. And so 6 months later, he calls me, says, I'm leaving the bank. I would like you to come with me. And by the way, the bank was giving me the directives. So don't believe banks that they're actually having your interest in mind. They basically try to get their business up, right? So I didn't go with him. And yeah, it was really an interesting experience. Sometimes you have to go with the gut. The system is broken. We really need to change it on so many levels. And healthcare is what I'd like to focus on. So forgive me for derailing a little bit.
When it comes to natural health care, like if you're going out on a summer adventure, you're going maybe backcountry hiking, what would you put in your first aid kit to keep yourself and pack safe when you're out and about?
I'm just going to say skin spray. because it is actually one of the things that I never go without. We're going to go hiking in the Rockies. I'll be offline for 5 days. Imagine that, you guys. Like I don't know how I'm gonna cope with it. Actually, I'll be fine. Bandages, gauze, vet wrap, which is the veterinary bandage. I am taking actually needle drivers and local anesthetic and some sutures to be able to suture wounds of ours or our dog friends. What else? Oh, dehydrated food. What I do actually, I dehydrate raw food. We have a dehydrator. We make food. We make pounds and pounds of food, and then we put in the dehydrator, and then we carry it with us. No kibble, definitely no kibble, and no store-bought dehydrated food for packs. I just like to know what goes in it, and yeah, that's maybe I'm a little obsessive about it, but I need to be like that's my job, right?
Exactly. It's always nicer to know exactly what's in the food. That's all we have for questions. Are there any closing points you'd like to make to the dog lovers out there when it comes to keeping themselves and their pack safe and happy and healthy this summer?
Thank you for being part of our community, for caring and caring for and loving your dog. I'm so touched by seeing all the engagement and comments, and I hope that the information that we provide is useful. And if you think that it is, just share it with others. And I think that together we can really make a difference. And yeah, you make my day every day. I see how much you love your dogs. Anyway, take care and have a nice day. Take care. Bye-bye.